March 17, 2025. This is the S&P 500 E-futures mini on the 2000 tick chart using NinjaTrader 8. The only economic data that came out today was at 5:30 Pacific Standard, which is the core retail sales. And this is kind of how I drew up the charts today. There was a spike, consolidation, a slow gradual sell-off, and another spike, another consolidation, another gradual sell-off. So it looked like it was two legs up. I want to point out that today, NinjaTrader recommended that I change my contract sizes, not my contract sizes, my contracts to the next quarter one. So instead of ES March 25, it's actually ES June 25. And if you look at, there's rollover. So there's going to be more volume starting to trade on the M25s as opposed to the H25s. This is after hours, so the volumes have been wiped out. This is from Thinkorswim. And by the time it gets to Friday, you're going to see the majority of the volume has shifted over to the M25s because these are going to be expiring. So it's better to be trading on the new contracts or the ones going forward because there's 90 days till expiration. And just like when it goes from M to U and then U to Z, you're going to see there's going to be a shift in volume from, oh, market's just open. So there's going to be a shift in volume to the new contracts as opposed to the old ones, as you know, these aren't going to be as traded more often and they're going to taper off. So I didn't take a trade today, but I did see some setups. And overall, unlike last week and the week before, the volume was a lot lower and also the volatility was a lot lower. So previously when I had like the previous charts, it was hard to contain the entire chart in one screen, but today the volume was rather low and I didn't really find too many enticing setups. I also know that this week the FOMC rate decision is coming out, and I think most analysts are expecting no change, so it might just be a nothing burger. But as with all typical Mondays and Tuesdays and Wednesdays of the FOMC rate decision week, they're usually very slow. And so that's what we saw today. I expect tomorrow to also be probably kind of a crawl because everybody's just kind of holding on to their hats to see what the rate decision is going to be, even though most analysts, most experts think they're not really going to do anything. And also, Jerome Powell, I meant on Wednesday. Wednesday was when they released their rate decision. And Powell also comes out and usually gives a press conference, and that kind of moves the market. So today and tomorrow should be really slow. Wednesday, I think it's going to be slow until about 11 a.m. Pacific Standard. That's when they release the rate decision. And things kind of get pretty wild because the volatility spikes up. People take positions on one side or the other, and it just kind of goes pretty crazy and pretty dangerous. So I'm gonna get into the trades right now. So the pre-market, you could already tell there's not that much volume. I find this yellow up channel because I had one touch, two touch, three touch right at the open. It looks like it fit the top side pretty well. Price is open, but before the open, it looks like it's crawling down this green down channel. There's a break and a test of the low. So I also saw a first entry long, pullback, second entry long, and then this creates technically a double bottom here, but it is a higher low because I like this candle engulfing this one. I didn't take it though because it's right at the first minute. It's at 6:31 Pacific Standard, so right at the open, that setup happens, and it's a good setup, but not good enough for me to want to take this trade. It has to be even better than that for me to want to take a trade right at the open. It also bounces off the EMA. It starts pushing up, almost hits the other side of this yellow up channel, comes down in this green down channel, kind of oscillates in this trading range. The next setup that I saw, excuse me, is this is a new high. It's technically a first entry long here, second entry long. You have a higher low here, but I also saw it as potentially in this range, and I saw a first entry short pullback, second entry short. Second entry short looks like it's about to fail. It's creating higher lows of each successive mini swings. So I thought there's a potential trade here. I also saw it, I didn't mark it as such though. I saw it as a visual first entry long, technically first entry, second entry, third entry, but I saw it as like first, actually first, pullback right here would be the second. And I also saw this potentially as a higher low, but it's ambiguous or it's not as clear because you could say it's a first entry, second entry, third entry, and maybe higher low here or here. So in context, I felt like there was enough room and enough momentum to push up for a 1 point scalp. Ends up it would have worked. Kind of hits the top of the range. So I have the 1, 2, 3 triple test. Another attempt up. I also saw this as localized new high. First entry long pullback. Second entry long. Second entry long that has failed on this candle. It pushed up, confirms the second entry long, but it also fails. But this is an inside bar. Fails on this candle. I kind of called it an almost trade. The reason being is it could be inside this sub range and it's at the lows. It's also, if you're taking the bigger range, it's right at the midline. So there's possibility for this to have a bounce and kind of oscillate in this a little longer. So if this big range wasn't in play, then I would have thought there's a smaller range and I'm right at the bottom. Could there be a bounce? So it's a little ambiguous. You can make an argument for both sides. It pushes through, so it could be a fail breakout. Then it creates this lower high. This lower high now I actually think is a possible trade as opposed to this almost trade. Because you confirmed a first entry, second entry failure, lower high. If this range doesn't seem to be that critical now because it pushed too far out, what I'm wondering is it going to stay within this big trading range? So this is the support that I would be concerned about. But this support is pretty far from here, enough for a 1 point scalp. So I thought there was a possible trade here. Would have worked. Potential fail breakout. Looks like it might move back into range. Top sideways, not the best. Comes down here, bounces and pushes up. So at this point, I do draw this trend line, 1 touch, 2 touch, 3 touch, and I drew it as a channel. So this is a pretty shallow channel. I don't trust it too much yet, but it is something to work with. It's congested. It is a new low. It's a first entry short, pull back, second entry short. Then you have a lower high. Lower high, I thought it was a possible trade because it's confirming the second entry short, first entry short, second entry short. Break of this green up channel has tested the high, so it looks like it's coming back down. There's a rejection off this orange trend line resistance, so it has every indication that it's probably coming back down. Flushes down, bounces. No real clean second entries. I mean, there is first entry right here, but then this one, second entry here is lower than this, so I don't like when it does that. Which is up, you have a first entry short, break of this red up channel, break and already has tested the highs, but there's no setup yet. So it's a first entry. You technically have a second entry. This isn't a good signal bar, but it is rejecting off this orange down channel, but the signal and follow-up trigger bar aren't very reassuring to go back down because although you have a break of this red, you're thinking the uptrend has played out. Maybe it's going to push back down, but these two indicate there's still a lot of bullish momentum. Then this one actually moves one tick above and flushes down, but it doesn't break below this one. Plus, these candles are getting a little bit bigger now. Flushes down. So it's the first entry, second entry, looking for a lower high. And you don't really get a lower high and it already pushes to the other side. So no setup there. New low, first entry short, technically a new high, first entry long, pullback, second entry long, but this isn't a really good signal bar. I wasn't ready to try to take a trade right here. Now you have a first entry short. Second entry short above the EMA. It did press down. Looks like it is two legs. There's a breakout here, so I'm expecting a potential breakout to this side. So I'm not ready to necessarily to go short yet. If I was going to go short, I'm looking for a lower high below the EMA. But then the criteria for the lower high is it can't print and close too low to this support. So it just feels like a area of be very careful and don't take the first trade yet. They do get a lower high, so it's a new low, first entry short, second entry short, pull up, push down, lower high. I should actually have marked that. The possible trade here, but the problem with this is a pretty big candle. It's 7 ticks. And the stop on this would actually, for me, go way up here. Oh, didn't mean to do that. Go ahead and get rid of this guy. Yeah, so it'd actually be here, not here, because the next candle, you don't want it to spike above this guy, take you out before it continues on its way. So this is 7 ticks on top of like 4 or 5 more ticks on top of that. So it just didn't feel worth it. And in this case, if you entered on this candle, you likely would have gotten stopped out right here. pushes up, so it creates a corresponding overshoot on each side, pushes down. It's first entry long, technically a second entry long. Area of consolidation. I was thinking maybe there's a trade, but excuse me. Technically, there's an inside bar to this. Excuse me. All right, much better. Technically, there's an inside bar to this setup, so it's a little. It doesn't feel as firm or safe to take this trade. The prices continue moving, pushes up, down. So I saw it as two legs down. Break of this rather shallow orange channel has broke, came out, tested again. Technically, it tested the low of this green down channel. It's starting to reverse up. I marked this as a lower high, but it's an almost trade because it's a lower high. I had a hunch about it. So it's a first entry, pullback, visual, first entry, second entry, potential lower high, good signal bar. But other than the visual, I wasn't too sure if there was anything else here. So it is a first entry short. I'm looking for a failed second entry short in this case to confirm my lower high. But you kind of get a failed second entry short here, but it's too far from the EMA now. If you didn't jump on this one, I felt like it was too late. And even then, I didn't really trust this one here. I also want to point out, as these candles are printing, prices are really slowing down. The volatility is low. Break of this orange up channel, test the high. No clean setups here. Technically, a first entry long, you have a second entry long here, but it's not a good signal bar. Pushes up. You don't really get any clean, definitive second entries. Again, you have a new high, first entry, second entry long here, but these are just too neutral. The yellow up channel looks like it's played out. It did break and push up. I was wondering if it was going to create this measured move, but it seems like it's kind of struggling here. It was a first entry long pullback. You technically have a second entry long, but this was your signal bar to think of getting ready for a second entry long. Then the trigger bar kind of closes right at the EMA. Break of the green down channel has tested the low. Maybe there's a trade here, but I didn't mark it, especially after seeing this follow up. So if this next candle actually closed, confirming the second entry and moving back up, maybe to test the highs of this yellow, then I probably would have marked it. But I saw his first entry, second entry. I'm waiting to see what happens. This isn't a very reassuring follow up. So there is no trade here. Kind of gets sideways. Definitely you'd be not thinking of taking a long necessarily here now. Prices are just too congested. It's in this trading range. Technically, I have a second entry long here, but it's a new high, first entry long pullback, second entry long. This is happening with only about 15 minutes left in the day. I sat here, watched this, and didn't really mark too many setups, so I wasn't now about to try to make something happen on what I consider kind of a so-so mediocre setup. So here, definitely, I'm just not even trading anymore because it's the last 10 minutes of the day, and it flushes down and into the close. And this is the start of the next trading day. So it was a really slow day today. Not completely surprising considering it's FOMC meeting rate decision, and the contracts are rolling over from the previous quarter, the ESH25s to the next quarter, the second quarter, ESM25s. So there's a lot of noticeable volume still on the March contracts, even though I'm trading the June contracts now. So no trades today, and I'm actually okay with that. Hopefully, well, tomorrow I anticipate another slow day because it's leading up to the FOMC. Again, contracts are rolling over. So hopefully I'll get something, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's also a no trade day. So hopefully that was helpful.